Ontario will soon be the toughest jurisdiction in North America for farmers who use a type of neurotoxic pesticide known as neonicotinoids. Beekeepers, they're pleased. Farmers, well, it's complicated. Joining us now for more, here's Mark Brock. He is the chair of the Grain Farmers of Ontario. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
How long did it take you to get to our studio?
Not too bad, actually. I was in Toronto already, so it's just popping down the street,
Not
which
bad.
takes forever.
But you're north of London normally, right?
North of London, yes.
So it's probably a few hours.
It's about 2 hours to come into the city.
Good. You're taking the Ontario government to court, eh?
Yes.
How come?
Unfortunately, I think just circumstances have arisen out of this new regulation that came into place July 1st of 2015 around neonics seed treatment use on corn and soybeans. And I think the issue there is just we felt there was some over-restrictive parts of the regulation around the pest assessment portion where, as a producer, it's limiting my ability to control pests because I have to prove need for it, and it's difficult to do that in some circumstances. And because of that, we're just challenging the government to make it hopefully more practical for farmers.
Do you appreciate the fact that the government's sort of in a tough spot on this? On the one hand, you've got to deal with pests. On the other hand, there are bees dying everywhere because of these pesticides. So what do they do?
I think when you look at the situation, there's concern about pollinator health from everybody. As producers and farmers, we're concerned with pollinator health too as well. And we're not entirely sure that all the bee deaths can be correlated to the neonic seed treatment use, but we are trying to mitigate our impact on pollinators. And understand that the province feels they need to do something on this. And I think we were together with them on doing something, but the process and the speed at which it took place and the lack of consultation about the true impact to our farm, I don't think really ever happened in a true way. So I think that's why we kind of bumped into this issue of having to take them to court.
Your farm north of London, what do you grow?
Corn, wheat, and soybeans.
And do you have a bee problem there?
I'm not aware of it. I don't see hives around the area where I farm. We've taken steps on our farm to use the new fluency agent that was introduced in 2014.
Use what?
The new fluency agent in terms of helping make sure there's less dust leaving the planter.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So,
do you use neonics?
Yes, we do. We use it on this past year. We used it on 100% of our corn acres and 75% of our soybean acres.
And you did not notice any bees dying in
not
large numbers around
Not that I'm aware of. You know, as I said, we've taken steps to put deflectors on our planter to mitigate any risk to pollinators and follow the new best management practices brought forward by the PMRA, the federal law, or
What's
the federal,
PMRA?
The Pest Regulatory Management Agency.
Okay.
That registers chemical products for us in Canada. They implemented new steps to help mitigate risk, and we applied those to our farm because it was a new label requirement of the product.
Has it not been adequately proven to your satisfaction that neonics, in fact, are responsible for killing off large numbers of bees?
I think from our standpoint, what we understand is that, yes, we know they're very toxic to bees when in contact at the lethal dose. I think from our standpoint and some of the reports that we've seen is that we're using the product, but it's sublethal exposure to bees. So it's not a lethal dose that the bees are seeing within our fields from some of the studies we've seen. So I think we're confident that if we take the best management practices that we need, that we should mitigate some of these bee losses. And we've seen a decline from 2013 to 2015 of 80%. So we feel we're taking the right steps.
What about rotating crops, crop rotation, as an alternative option to using neonics?
Yeah, crop rotation makes good economic sense just as a whole. So we do rotate crops, and
you do it on your farm?
Yes, we go corn, wheat, soybean rotation, and we don't use the neonics in the wheat. So, you know, we do see that kind of transition or that year off approach, and with some new products coming in the marketplace, some new innovations, there probably will be a decline of the neonics seed treatment.
Mark, the government says that only about 20% of fields actually need this pesticide. How do you use it?
It's an example of soil type. So what the province looked at quickly and said, based on the soil type, they're more prone to be damaged from these pests in these areas. And that soil type makes up about 20% of the province. However, I have that soil type through every field I have.
So you have to use neonics on everything?
Yes, so we haven't got into the technology or the innovation yet that we can be very selective within the field to use it. We are trying to go from the shotgun to the rifle approach, and we feel...
Which means what?
It means that we're trying to be more precise in what we're trying to do. So instead of just saying we're going to use this just everywhere, we're trying to get to a point where we can say we're strategically using it. And as technology evolves, we can be even more strategic with that use.
If you didn't use Neonics, you use it on all of your crops right now, on all your fields. If you didn't use it, what would happen?
I think we'll see plant stand loss, and then that equates back into economic loss. So there's been some reports out there that shows an economic impact. And that's why we started using them in the first place. We don't use anything that doesn't provide value back to our farm, and also lets us be more environmentally sustainable. We feel we can use these products instead of other ones and be more strategic in the approach, and therefore better on the environment. But yeah, it could be a significant impact on our farms with the replant costs and having to deal with some of the plant loss that we would see.
We spoke to a York University professor named Amro Zayed. He mentioned studies that show that getting rid of neonics doesn't significantly affect crop yield. However, back in December 2014, the Globe and Mail ran a story on this, and it said in the Globe, the Grain Farmers of Ontario, which is the largest farmers' lobby group, says the, quote, near ban will handcuff farmers. The group funded a study with the chemical lobbyist CropLife Canada that said restricting neonics will slash crop revenues by $630 million. Okay, who's right?
Well, I think it's one of those situations where you have to take everything in stride. So that's one report that's come out, and someone else has a report that will counter that. I think a big thing that sums that up is this new report that came out of the PRMRA, as I mentioned before, in Health Canada, that actually is a federal agency that said that there is economic value in the use of seed treatments. So, I think there's been numerous reports out there that show an economic value to them. There's some that challenge that. And, I think that was some of the pushback we were given to government, saying, let's work together to solve this problem, not try to do it in a 6-month period, but let's try to do it in a 2-year period so that we don't cause undue loss in a situation where, we could have done something differently.
Do you think the government is adequately listening to your objections?
I think they understand where they're coming from, but I think there's always that deal of trying to work with the political pull of what society wants to, and I think we have to do more work as farmers to educate consumers and government about the practices we use in our farm and how we've innovated over time and how we are further innovating, and that help them come along with us on the journey so they understand the process better.
I do note, I'm not alleging anything here, but I do note that CropLife Canada, which is the group we just referred to in that Globe and Mail piece, their board includes executives from 2 companies, Bayer and, is it Syngenta? Is that how you say it? Large producers of neonics, and I wonder whether that means your arguments are somehow compromised because of that.
Well, I think, it's one of those situations where we're industry partners. I think people accuse farmers of being pawns of the life science company. That's farthest thing from the truth. We make educated decisions on our farm all the time. I'm university educated in agronomy, crop science. So, I think some people like to say that farmers, are just being subjected to this use because the life science companies are making us. That's far from the truth. And, I think we work together, and that's why you see reports commissioned like this, because we both see value in the product. And, some other ones that are third party, like the one from the federal government, helps validate some of the reports we find that are a third party unbiased view.
Okay. How do you test your soil?
How do I test my soil?
Yeah.
We have a whole process that's in place that was brought forward by the government through the OMAF, or the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And in terms, we have a step-by-step procedure which we have to follow to do these bait stations to monitor our soils.
Is it expensive?
I figured we did some quick math on the back of a napkin basically one day, and I figured it's going to align about $5 per acre it's going to cost me to do it to get a professional in to do these different tests. And the issue that's tough for me is that economically I'm a price taker with commodities. I can't really just say, okay, I have a new cost in my operation, now I'm going to pass it on to the consumer. I'm subjected to the Chicago Board of Trade and that price, so it's harder for me to recoup some of those extra costs.
Does the Ontario government do anything to make soil testing more affordable for farmers.
No, it's just something that we're going to have to, I guess, grin and bear because there isn't really a mechanism in place for us to recapture some of those costs.
So it's a regulation. It's just part of the cost of doing business. You got to suck it up.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at right now.
Does the government of Ontario offer some kind of free course in helping you do this?
Yes, this year they're actually offering a course as a grower. If I want to buy neonic treated seed this coming year or following years, I have to be certified. So I have to go through a pest management training course, which we have no issues with. We think it's good. And the province is providing that free up until the September of 2016. Then after that, there will be a fee for the course.
Okay, let's come full circle and finish on this. You're in court against the government of Ontario. You're obviously in a, I mean, what do we want to call it, a cage match here with the beekeepers in some respects to see how you're going to handle this whole neonics thing. How's this going to resolve itself at the end of the day?
I think time will let it resolve itself. I think, you know, there is a lot of commercial beekeepers out there that we have solid relationships with, and it isn't this combative thing that you see in the media per se. And there's good, healthy relationships out there between us. And I think with government, we'll work through this issue and move on to other things.
Usually a court case is not an indication of a good, healthy relationship with government.
Well, you know, I think it's one of those things where it's been really hard for us because it's not something as an organization we want to have to take on. But pressure from farmers and our members, seemed to be like our last resort, and that's why we went through with it. And we'll have to work at our relationship going forward with the government. But you know, I know from my standpoint, my door is always open to government to have a conversation.
Gotcha. That's Mark Brock, Chair of the Grain Farmers of Ontario. Mark, thanks for making the long trek in from near Exeter, Ontario, to be in our studios today.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
so much.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.